my belief system at the time around money, which was like, you've got to hold on to what you've got. Every penny counts. A penny saved is a penny earned. A dollar spent is a dollar wasted. Every dollar should have its name. And we have financial gurus that try to teach that. There is no win in that. Hi, this is Garrett Gunderson, and welcome to What's Your Win? A lot of people are going through life. They're trying to navigate all this chaos. There's so much complexity. There's inflation that's going on. They're working so hard that there's barely any time for themselves. And in a world where we're trying to do anything from raise kids to start a business to find a career to simply just keep up, we're losing our win. So I've got my business partner and co-host Corey Wirt with me. Corey, what's up?
Nice to be here.
In from Toronto,
in the lab.
Yeah. So this is a topic that I think that has been especially learned through hard lessons. Absolutely. We can even talk some of the hard lessons that I've had. And really the concept of What's Your Win is we win when we play. We can actually discover a way that we create a life we don't want to retire from.
I think there couldn't be a more important topic to be talking about these days.
Yeah, like when I didn't know my win, we remember that, not far, not too long of a distance. And it was like, let's just do 15 cities in the middle of COVID and go do a comedy tour where nobody knows I'm a comedian. This will be amazing. and it was while I was on stage, but when I wasn't on stage, it was a lot of work.
It was all the
stress
moments, yeah.
Yeah, you yelled at me.
I did a few times.
So let's dissect this concept of what's your win. I mean, most people are stuck either playing not to lose, doing all they can to hold on to what they've got. Usually protection and security are at the forefront of their mind and everything that they live for. But then there's this other faction of people playing to win. And that's definitely something I've been accustomed to in the past. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs wear it as like a badge or moniker, like, yeah, I play to win. I remember speaking at MIT for this thing called Gathering the Titans. And they brought in like the new people that were attending, and one guy, they were asking what would be their last words, and he said, play to win. And I was like, oh, dude, this is going to be one heck of a presentation I'm about to give, because that's going to be his last words. The problem with play to win is it's only focused on the future, always on this treadmill, never enjoying the present. And so it's more like running from problems and chasing down something to fill a void that can't be filled.
Absolutely. And when you're focusing only on the outcome and not the process and the joy that the process can bring to you, then many times when you get to that trophy, you realize it's an empty trophy.
Hollow.
Yeah.
I really am disappointed you didn't say 100% when I said that.
I'm going to try consciously not to say 100%, 100 times in this.
Yeah, we, as part of like, we win when we play, as part of our philosophy, when we get together, we laugh a lot. We talk about a lot of things, but we joke about the things that we talk about too much, because we have this guy, Dr. Craig Manning, that we work with, and he talked about having these codes to like remind yourself of things when you're in the middle of like high stakes moments. Like, he works with a lot of athletes. And so I immediately messed with Corey.
Yes, you did.
My response. And
I think I clapped back pretty well, though.
Very well. The only difference is now the word 100% is just stuck in your mind anytime someone says it.
Everywhere.
And every time you say
haunts
it.
Me.
So 100%. So let's begin with, when you know your win.
Yeah.
You've already won.
Absolutely.
So most people think that they're trying to get to some far off distance. Like, if I just work hard enough, if I just sacrifice enough, then one day, someday, I'll finally be able to live the life that I enjoy.
It's deferring for the future, an uncertain future.
Deferring doesn't really work in many areas of life. Like, when my wife wants me to do something, I defer it. That never goes well.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. But it's also reminds me of a joke.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
But I'm like, hey, baby, you want to hook up? She's like, later. That just means no. It's just a polite way to say it.
It's an uncertain outcome in the future for sure.
Like, later. When my kids tell me they're going to do something later, it's not going to get done. It means I'm going to have to manage this at a whole different level.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how we've been trained to live, on later, on one day.
Absolutely.
And one of the most critical decisions in our win is knowing our career and knowing what we're going to do that actually is compelling enough. But when we get in the trappings of materialism and we want to buy a lot of things, and I mean, I'm in my 20s, it's like, sucks, because you're like, oh, I'm young, but I don't have cash.
Yeah.
And fortunately, you can live with roommates and all that kind of stuff. But still, it's easy to get a credit card and want to spend money on that. And then all of a sudden there's this very quick line to, I have to work instead of I get to choose what I want to do for work.
Yeah.
And we're in a world where a lot of people are doing jobs that they don't like. And that's part of the reason why I think they got government checks and then people are like, I don't want to go back to work, because they weren't in a fulfilling job. They weren't in a career that mattered to them. They didn't feel like they were in a way of delivering value. And so ultimately, I think when we do the things that we hate, we lose energy, and it takes like 4 or 5 times more energy in those types of situations than following something that we enjoy, even when we have to do things that aren't fun to get that. Like, just turned in a book today, and
Congratulations, by the way.
yeah, it's just been a lot of my life in that
5
thing.
years or so.
I actually cried when I sent it to the publisher.
surprised.
They probably cried. We're like, oh my God, this is only 4 years behind schedule. That's all. I just didn't have the experience and knowledge and what happened in life to write about it. But one of the stories in this was not knowing my win and having this great moment where film a comedy special, feel on top of the world, but then without knowing a win, get in the trappings of more. Oh, well, if that was good, more is better. And if we do even more cities, and if it's all sold out and all this, it was just like, now I was in the play to win. I was on the treadmill.
Yeah.
I wasn't sleeping enough. I wasn't enjoying life. Energy starts to be diminished. And how many people take the time to sit down and be like, well, what's a win for me?
Absolutely. And if you don't define the game that you're trying to play, then it's easy for you to lose sight when you're playing the game. And so you start out with something that you're passionate about, and comedy is something that you love. It's been a hobby
Right.
of yours. It gives you fulfillment. It gives you joy. But then the trappings of how you went about it, because you hadn't defined the winning game and what the outcome of that, then all of a sudden, and I watched your energy levels start to kind of diminish a little bit around this. And while you were on
lot.
stage, you loved the interaction. You loved making the crowd laugh. But it was all those in-between moments where we hadn't defined how we wanted to build that game.
And when.
How do we have joy in the process, not just the outcome of being on stage. And so I think that was just a massive learning lesson, which has created a lot of conversation and clarity for us. Because now,
Right.
when we're looking at an opportunity, we don't get lost in that opportunity. We don't bend to that opportunity. We make the opportunity bend to us, to the lifestyle that we want, to the game that we want to play, to keep the joy in our day. And I think that that's something really unique that most people don't do.
Talk about that outcome versus process.
So again, like, outcome is an uncertain future, right? And so there's this concept, and you and I have been talking about this a lot the last couple of days, where there's like this message in the market where it's like, do what you love and you will be successful. And I think that is so dangerous, because just because you're doing something that you love doesn't mean the outcome of that is going to be
Like, I love to masturbate, but
well. It's interesting that that's where you decided to go with this. But
I wanted to see if I could make you laugh.
well, I also feel like that outcome is always rewarding. So
It's hollow. It's shallow.
I totally lost where I was now.
Outcome versus process.
So when
And we've been talking for the past few days about people just like, oh, this is what I love to do, and I'm just going to do what I love. But the dollars don't always follow that.
And so I feel like there's just a little bit of a misalignment in that message, because stop looking at me like that. Because when you do something that you love, what that does is it gives you the power in the process to keep going when things get hard.
Right.
And that, I think, is the magic within doing what you love. It's not a guaranteed successful outcome.
It's also not guaranteed that you'll make more money,
No.
because 1999. If people remember, that was a year before the 2000s. I was graduating college, and
Hold on, so 1999 was the year before the 2000s?
just, there's people that weren't even born that are watching
wonder
this, so
you're
they don't
in
even know
finance.
what's going on. They didn't know that was a thing. They don't know what CDs are. They don't know what DVDs
DVD
are.
player was.
Yeah, they've never seen these things, so they think 1999 is a song that's super old by Prince.
That's a great song, though.
Yeah, it is a good
great
song.
Yeah.
So I'm graduating and I have all these job offers because it was just a really strong market and a strong economy, and I was good at interviewing, and I had job offers at investment banks, and I'm certain I would have more money if I would have worked at an investment bank. I'm also certain I'd be more miserable if I worked at an investment bank.
100%.
So that's one of the conundrums or traps that people kind of have to look for, and why it's important to know your win.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, society will define your win for you. And that win looks like more, bigger, better, faster, all at the expense of today. And so we're always in this frenetic, frantic mindset of I've got to get what's mine because if not, someone's going to take it. That is what the consumeristic nature of society has cultivated. And it's this notion of chasing awards and accolades and trophies
Or
and
that there's
status.
this threshold that once you get to that, now
I'm going to be happy. Right. And you sold your business for a good amount of money back in the day.
And it was the most
your
hollow
least happy.
victory. Absolutely. It created an identity crisis for me. It was followed by a depression. It was the blues weren't bluer, the greens weren't greener. It was something that I had pursued for a long time in my life. And when I got there, it was like a what the fuck sort of moment.
Right. Well, this is the lottery syndrome. Like people want to have some big event, whether it's an exit or like last night we were in these conversations and someone brought up they were buying lottery tickets. I'm like, really?
I watched you had to bite
really?
your tongue. You just sat
that is a
back in
tax on people that are not in the know. Like I get why someone buys it and the value they get is they get to dream for a minute. Like what would I do with this?
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you, if you get money without learning your value, without developing your knowledge of how to earn that, and without building the relationships that are required to grow that, what it is a hollow victory that's without a win.
Well, how many times do you hear a lottery winner that's like literally bankrupt and dead broke 10 years after winning like $170 million?
Yeah, I wrote all those lottery jokes. I don't know if we even put them in the special, but I was like, people that win the lottery lose it life.
Yeah.
Because all these people come out of the woodwork. They're like, hey, can you buy me a car? Take care of my bills. You've got dinner, right? All that kind of stuff. And so there's consumption without knowledge. And then that's why they end up in jail or bankrupt. But you know what? They shouldn't have bought a tiger. You know, that's the kind of stuff that happens with a lottery winner. But you know, this is the issue is when we skip the steps, when we think that money is an outcome that's based upon luck or greed, then ultimately we feel out of control in our lives. We don't know our win. And the way that we get to a win is we go, what if you were to design your life? What do you want to do on a daily basis? And what if money was an extension of you living a quality of life that was consistent with who you are, what you want to do, and that allows you to have energy behind the work that you do? And most people go, well, can you do that? Well, my wife got interviewed for this origin story we're doing, and my son was, I think, 7 at the time or 9, like really young. Yeah. And she said, well, there was no job for Garrett when he graduated college because I turned down all those other jobs. She goes, so he just created his own. And my youngest was like, what do you mean he created his own job? She goes, well, he's an entrepreneur and entrepreneurs can just invent things. Yeah. He's like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Nope. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur to invent things or to find a career. I think you could be intrapreneurial where you find organizations where you can thrive because of the process or structure aligns with who you are. No doubt. I think sometimes we overemphasize entrepreneurship if we're entrepreneurs and neglect that only entrepreneurs in this world would be a dangerous world. Nothing would actually get done. There would be a whole lot of ideas and a whole lot of things without guardrails.
A world full of rock stars and nothing else is a dangerous world.
So designing the game, knowing the win, that's the process.
And I think the outcome of that is it's life happens for you, not life happens to you. And when you don't know the game that you want to play, when you don't know the win, then when all these outside circumstances and influences come in, life starts happening to you and you're back on a treadmill. And it doesn't matter if you have a lot of money or not a lot of money. It doesn't, like, that is not a function of being wealthy or not being wealthy. And you see that everywhere. And I really feel it's because people don't sit down to design the perfect life. And that doesn't mean I want this house. That doesn't mean I want this many vacations a year. It's the nuances in between. Like, where's my passion? Where's my hobby? What do I do for myself? What do I do for my family? What do I do for my relationships? And I think when you start to fill that in, it just kind of blocks out the outside influence of the world. You insulate yourself in your win.
And you blur the lines between work and play. So just
the whole idea of 9 to 5 and then you get the weekend for yourself. It doesn't have, like, I get that it's the industrial complex. It made a ton of sense at some point, but we're in the information age. that construct no longer serves us or no longer works, and it doesn't have to be that way, but it's just been ingrained and it's been a reality for the last 50, 80 years, however long, and it's something that we haven't kind of shaken ourselves out of yet.
I think that part of the reason that we don't know our win is because of the conditioning of society, which we've talked about, but mostly because of fear. And there's a fear to invent something or design a life, because I think that it's been programmed in us that money and time are both linear. There's only so much money, there's only so much time. And these become two of the main culprits that rob from our lives. You'll hear people say, I just don't have the money. But they do, because I've seen how many people have money in retirement plans, how many people have cash, but what they're actually saying is it's not that important to me, or I'm holding on tight to what I have because I believe there's only so much to go around. Or I don't have the time. A lot of that isn't true because of escapism. Escapism is when we don't want to face something, when we feel overwhelmed, when we don't want to have a conversation or life gets difficult. It's easy to get caught up in, as Stephen Covey said, the thick of thin things. You know, like finding those excuses. Yeah, he was so brilliant. So in knowing the win, it also takes us away from that linear money-making model, because when we sit down and go, what do I want? We're not earning dollars in that moment. And this is why vision, which is our context of how we live, it's what we speak into existence of what we're going to do on a day-to-day basis, because it tells our brain what to pay attention to, and it informs all of our actions. When I was in my 20s, it was hard to have retreats or to take time away from meeting one-on-one with clients, because it meant that I wasn't earning money. It was even harder to take a vacation. And this is where my family loves to share these stories. This is their favorite pastime, because we have these 4 money personas at garrettgunderson.com/quiz. And it helps you understand how you make your financial decisions, how to avoid some of the pitfalls, especially how to avoid the shadow personas that lead to misery ultimately and prevent you from knowing your win. But before I understood kind of where we're headed, I'll get to that, where I thought it was linear, time is money, where I thought it was linear, hard work equals better results.
Like, how many cliches are out there that's been ingrained into you that are all in this vein?
And I was so there. And so I remember we go to San Diego. I pack a bag with just food from the house so that we don't have to go out to restaurants. We definitely go eat at the theme parks. Hey, I know I'm interrupting, but it's because if you go to garrettgunderson.com/quiz, you can figure out your money persona. When you know your money persona, you'll be able to make better choices when it comes to your finances, understand where you've made mistakes and missteps and what was the psychology behind that, and really improve how you view money and how you work with other people with different money personas. So Garrett Gunderson/quiz, no charge, discover your results, and go ahead and comment and let us know what it was. I'm surprised I even spent the money to go to the theme parks.
So am I, actually.
Yeah. I was like, I remember going and being like, San Diego's not that cool, but when you don't stay in a nice hotel around the right area, it's not as cool.
Fair.
And when my wife wants to get something at SeaWorld or wherever we were, you know, before we saw Blackfish, but anyway, and I'm like, well, no, we have food back at the hotel that I brought.
Yeah.
Not fun.
No.
So
romantic, by the way.
Yeah.
Well played.
And you've seen
The Miser.
You watched The Miser. Yeah, later. You watched The Miser because after I just spent a bunch of money on the comedy special, and I was gone for a week, and I came back and there was some bills that we didn't know were owed. And so I heard and paid those, but then it was like, oh, that was a lot of money. And then I came to the cabin and you and your wife were up here, and I'm like, hey, why are these lights on?
Hey, why is the heat on?
Why is the heat on? It is June, by the way. No, it was April.
Whose half-drank bottle of Bai is that?
The Miser just came in, and then so
that was fun to watch, by the way.
Yeah, so we'll go on. You know, we'll be like on a road trip with the family, and then Carrie's just telling my kids about all the ways I was a miser. They don't recognize that person, but that was my belief system at the time around money, which was like, you've got to hold on to what you've got. Every penny counts. A penny saved is a penny earned. You know, a dollar spent is a dollar wasted. Every dollar should have its name. And we have financial gurus that try to teach that. There is no win in that.
None.
Because the win is not only the loss is not only for me, it's for the people that I love that aren't able to, like Carrie said, our first year of marriage was the hardest because I went from being like this romantic to being this miser. I'm like, why is our heat bill so high? Why haven't we budget to the final penny? Where's those 32 cents they aren't balanced in the checkbook? Like a lot of fighting around it because I was obsessed with it based upon a shadow persona, not knowing the win, thinking that everything was about how much I could save. And even her dad, who's fairly conservative fiscally, was like, hey, why don't you let her order wine at dinner? Like he's never confrontational. He's like, bud, I'm pretty conservative, but come on.
Yeah.
Like, get over yourself here.
Yeah.
So that was not knowing a win. That's getting trapped in a linear game where money and time are not linear because energy and the way energy relates to time and the way that are the things that are a win for us, which I sat down and listed with you the other day. I'm like, when I'm writing, whether it's poetry that almost nobody sees or cares about, you know,
Mostly the second.
Mostly the
Definitely
second.
the latter.
Yeah. You know, but that could be jokes and comedy. That could be a book.
The book.
Like that could be even, I've been posting on Facebook. Aren't you proud of me?
I know.
At first it shows
Remember
my
the
age.
time you wanted to do the social media exodus?
Yeah, I was just going to completely exit social. I did.
And why were you going to do that?
Because I just thought it was manipulative with all the algorithms and all this kind of stuff and a time suck. And
What I remember is it was because you don't spend a lot of time on social, neither do I, but you didn't have a large enough followership. So when we were doing the comedy tour, you know, and people were starting to look at you online, there wasn't a big enough audience. And so you were willing to burn that to the ground, which again, like if you look at what you're doing now, there's connection and expression. And for someone who's not strategically posting on social media every single day, like the engagement that you have is because people resonate with your message. But because you hadn't defined the win, you were chasing the trophy, then you were going to limit a whole level of connection that you have with your audience.
Perfect. Let's talk about that right now. And I'll talk about these other pieces, but not knowing my win, the world came to me and said, you have to be on social media. My manager said, you got to be on social media. The clubs look at your social media following. Chappelle's not. Now I'm not, you know, he's the greatest, but still doesn't have it because he's like, that's not what he walked away from Chappelle's show. Wasn't he's like, he defined his win and he shows up.
Could you
imagine
imagine walking away from, like, again, this is the definition of knowing your win. Walked away from a $50 million contract.
Yeah, not easy.
That's insane.
Right. So, so ultimately, everybody was telling me what to do with social media, and I wasn't bought in on it because I didn't know my win. It's bottom line. Now, I want to post every day on YouTube, every day, because I like doing this with you. Yeah. I like doing the American Ream rants. I'd sat and we took years to figure out what that's going to be, what the voice is going to be.
Almost 2 years.
Right. Because I was on radio 5 days a week, 2 hours a day for a long time. And I just got bored with it. So I'm like, what could I dedicate time to? I mean, you know, I wrote this one-man show and perform it. And I'm still excited about doing that, even though I've performed that more than probably all my other keynotes combined at this point. But I'm engaged because of what it is, how it speaks to me. It's congruent. It's part of the win, you know, because the next thing is not just writing, it's expression and performing. So that's even rehearsal. So knowing the win, it's like I start to have this vision for what fits in the life. And now I'll get on Facebook and I'll even respond in the comments because it's about the things that are important and real, not just like, look at what I'm doing. It's like, hey, this is a thought I had. And then people engage. Or it's like, hey, I'm looking for quotes for my book. Hilarious the quotes people came up with, man.
Lots of engagement on that post.
Home, where the hoe and me come together. That's what my buddy Tim sent as a quote. I was like, dude, what are you like?
I can't believe I've never heard that.
Come on. But like that stuff's fun. And then on YouTube, I don't want to read every comment, but every good question I'm going to answer with a video. Like it might be one video that answers 5 questions, but I'm like, that's how I can be more engaged and give them more detail than just sitting down and typing. So I'm excited about that. Or when people come up here for one-on-one immersions, we're filming part of those and sharing that so people can see how this content actually impacts someone in a real moment when it's super close and hard to figure out. So you're right. Social media didn't know my win. Everything that we're doing here. Now I'm like, who do I want to talk to anyway? What are the conversations I want to have that I could learn from?
The conversations that you would be having if it wasn't for a social channel, but just in your living room with cool people and cool conversations.
Right. Even Caleb this morning from the And Assay, he's like, dude, when did you post that thing on Facebook?
Yeah.
Because we were up super late last night.
Yeah.
He and I worked out this morning. And I was like, I don't know, I just did it this morning because it only took a few minutes because it's coming from my win. It's coming from who I am. It's not what I'm being told to do. It's just a way that I'm sharing and expressing because it's consistent with either writing, expression, connection. Because I love, like, this creates connection where we get to spend some time together. So that's part of it, right? I mean, so now that I know those things that are really part of my win, I went through my day and I was like, what am I doing that's part of my win? What's not? I actually just changed one of my meetings that you and I had talked about. It's no longer going to be a couple hours. It's going to be 1 hour a week, and I'm going to put tight controls on it. I'm moving it towards the end of the day so I have the time to write. I mean, I was writing this book and obsessed where I had to tell myself, remember, go spend time with the kids. Remember, go talk to your wife about this. And you know how often I've mentioned it in the last week. You're like, oh, I didn't know. Are you right? You're working on a book?
I had no idea. This is such a shock to me. But just to pause there for a second, because I think this is a good analogy to kind of dissect. So when you look at the radio show, right, the purpose is the same. You want to get your message out to the audience and increase your brand awareness. Now, what we're doing with social media is no different. But where it is different is from a process perspective. We sat there and quite literally for 19 months talked and defined about what these conversations are going to be. Who do you want to represent? How do you want to show up in the world? And we found a way to do that you're passionate about and you're invigorated to do on a daily basis. And so where you got burnt out and tired with the radio show, it wasn't because of the medium or the outcome. It was the process. And so now that we've defined the process, we've defined the win, this is play.
Right. And so the thing that came, and it's so funny because as we were talking yesterday, I'm like, should I do this? You're like, well, 18 months ago, I said that would be a good idea. I was like, okay,
you know what, until it's your idea, ready. It's not a good idea.
Hey, let me tell you about this idea. But this is where my real beef with social media was. March of 2020, I started to just see so much division, so much anger, so much hate, and I opted out. So I got completely off. I deleted it from my phone. They changed the password. I didn't know how to even get on it. And I think my last post was me walking out by the river and saying, what happened if you just reconnected with nature for a minute, you know? So I was like, that was my message. But my real issue, even more than that, was what I want is shared moments. And I already have enough difficulty staying present because my mind is very active. Like, how many conversations do we have in 1 hour? You know,
it's dizzying.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, we'll loop back to that eventually because my mind went squirrel. So if all of a sudden I'm having a great moment and it's like, oh wait, we need to take a picture or film a video, I feel like it takes me out of the moment.
It does.
And so I was like, how do I have shared moments on social media without destroying my shared moments in person? So last night's the perfect example. We're driving and Carrie tells us the story. And it's so hilarious because, you know, me even talking about Burning Man on social media is a breakthrough in as ridiculous as it sounds. Because I grew up, my Italian side of the family, super Catholic. The other side of the family, Mormon, right? And so I grew up in Utah where it's like, if I swear, am I going to lose business? Am I going to be judged? Are they going to think less of me? And so, like, Burning Man is seen by a lot of people as this hedonistic, crazy, orgy fest, right? Well, we have all our Burning Man stuff out at the house. Our house is the house that the kids come and hang out with Roman. And so they ask what it is. He says it's stuff for Burning Man. They look up Burning Man on the internet and they go, your parents are weird. Are they doing orgies? Roman's crying to my wife, like, in tears. He's like, what are
why are you guys
so
doing
weird
this?
And all this? So we're laughing about the story last night, and so it was just easy to go make a post because I was like, here's my expression. We have this thing called the roast. It's a coffee cart that I can roast people while I make them coffee, and we're excited to take it to Burning Man. And I've never seen the orgy tent. You know?
And again, it's just such a small component of what Burning Man is. You know, you look at the art installations, you look at the expression, you look at the connection of community. Right. Like, it's this really beautiful premise. But again, you know, the world will project what it wants to.
And if people want to go be part of the orgy, They gotta go be part of the orgy. It's not my job to
Yeah.
be the moral police of what's right or wrong, because
Absolutely.
what
To
do
each
I
their
know?
own.
I have continued to evolve in my thinking as time goes on and realized what I thought was right and wrong in my 20s was limited thinking, was a constraint and judgment that came from fear, not from love.
You were playing not to lose, and
Totally.
because of that, you allowed the world to project their like vision
Yeah.
onto you, and you kind of you just kind of bent to it, right?
Yeah, I went to this event years ago, and they had this exercise where they stand you in front of a semicircle of about 8 people. Someone asks you a question, you answer it for like, I don't know, a minute, and then they get to give you the negative feedback of what their thinking is of who you are.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
And this is like something we talked about this week. So they said, talk about you as a father. And at the time, I just really transformed and invested so heavily in my kids. And then I finished and someone's like, you're a terrible father. You're checked out. All you care about is business and all this. And like, no reaction. Because I was like, whatever. Like, then they asked me some question. And I remember this girl is like angrily shaking her head and like just like digging into me. And the whole time I'm like, this bitch. Like, I'm just so judgmental. And I remember her final words, and she goes, and when I'm around you, I just feel judged. I was like, holy shit. I judged her the entire time she was speaking.
saying this.
So no wonder she feels judged.
Yeah.
Because everything was, what am I doing better than them? It was this game of comparison. It's the game of like, I've got to get what I can because I'm in the consumer condition of scarcity where it's all a tug of war and everyone's against each other. And that's what the world's trying to feed right now.
Absolutely.
We have way more in common than we have, like
100%.
again, but it's like, let's hit the hot button issues.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that's going to divide people.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you have different political views or whatever the case may be. I guarantee you, if you spend enough time with someone, you will find a common thread, regardless of all the divisiveness, where you guys are completely in alignment.
And if you love yourself enough, you'll find a way to love people that you completely disagree with.
Absolutely.
If you don't love yourself enough, whatever you hate in them is something that you haven't accepted in yourself.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to swallow.
It is.
I hate when I know that's going on. Like I know what's
love
going
telling
on.
you
I
when
just
it's
want to be
going on.
childish right now. I just want to be immature, but no, I have to play. But I'm playing more and more mature at the same time. And I think that why is it that play gets removed from us is I think it's competition. I think it's, hey, you better protect and take care of, or you better grow or die. It's one of those two. And then we just get caught up in that trap. And then all that gets crowded out. So a point that I really want to make here is when we skip the steps of finding a career that speaks to who we are, because we get into the world of consumption. And look, when I started in finance, there was a guy that told me, you should buy a BMW before you can afford it. It'll motivate you to work.
The whole extreme manifestation.
And I was a miser. He might as well punch me in the throat because I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's like, I'm living in a basement of my
But then you
in-law.
bought a Bentley, right?
Yeah, 10 years wore off, like eventually. It's amazing I'm still married after my Bentley phase. True asshole. Like I get like some people love cars. I just did it because my partners were like, dude, you gotta drive a nicer car than our secretary. I'm like, they're like, what do you like? This is how much thought I put into that. Didn't know my win. I was in Scotland with my dad, where I retired from golf. The reason I retired from golf is on the 10th hole of the King's course in Glen Eagles, the caddy, I go, what club should I use? He goes, I think any will do. Oh. It's like, yeah, from the tee, I could use a putter and still be just as good. And so I said, are you cool if I just stop now? Like,
Yes,
great.
I am. Yes,
so I retired at that point, but we were at this place where there was a Jaguar convention, right? So there's just all these Jaguar cars everywhere. And a dude drove in a Bentley, and 100 people descended upon him. So that was the entire thinking of getting a Bentley.
I want that, yeah.
I was like, cool, I'll get the Bentley.
Yeah.
So I get the Bentley, drive it to my hometown, and they just thought there was something wrong with my Chrysler 300 grill. They're like, what's wrong with this thing? I'm like, what do you mean? And my partners said we would attract clients. We were crushing it with 16-year-old boys. They definitely wanted to take a picture by the car. That was about it.
And I'm sure they could afford the large service retainers and the fees and all of
So,
that.
and as I think it was probably, I was a 28-year-old man. My wife, we're driving to Thanksgiving. We get to my parents' house and she goes to hand me her soda. I didn't quite grab it yet, so it just falls into the Bentley. 30 ounces of Coke or whatever. And I yelled at her. And then she goes, I'm going in and telling your mom. And I was like, please don't. Like a child. Like I said, oh, my mom's going to beat my ass. I'm 28 years old. So that was my Bentley phase.
Yeah.
Didn't know my win. Someone else defined it for me. Drive this car. And by the way, when I posted that picture of that car on the Salt Flats for this article, the most stupid things I've ever said in print in this article.
Really? Like
Prosperity Lifestyle magazine. I don't know what it was. It's like, I said, you know what? I've just made so much money. I have so much cash flow off my real estate. I'm now here to give back.
Oh, you were that guy.
And then the universe was like, we're just going to take that all from you in 2008 because you're such a douche. That didn't know my win, right? Just went after like, this is what I think people want to see from me. And when I posted that picture on social media, someone told me I look like a pretentious douche. And I did. So there's just, and that was again, someone saying, oh, you need to display wealth. And this is the problem. People displaying wealth, but they're broke when it comes to their spirituality, their emotional well-being, their quality of life, because everything is hollow based upon look at me and what I have, but they don't have love for themselves. They don't know their win. They're simply suffering every single day saying, will you accept me because I have these things? But what that does is push people away.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You didn't know me back then, or else I'm sure you would have tortured me.
Friends. The Bentley story just took the steam out of everything.
So we've got writing, other like performing, like that's why I love comedy. But it wasn't like I always loved writing because I was scared to write because I didn't think I was a good writer when I first wrote. So I delegated that off. And so often speaking something into existence, people are afraid to do that because what if other people don't accept it? What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not worthy of that success? What if someone thinks it's terrible and then I now think I'm terrible? And what if I do it but I fail and I don't get there? What will people think about me? First of all, people don't think as much as you would think.
No.
Right?
No, the voice in your head is always louder than the voice outside.
So knowing our win, I think we have to really remove 3 things that hold us back. Number 1, money.
Yes.
Because when money becomes our reason or excuse, we're no longer free and we're no longer going to have something happen that's miraculous.
And it's important to say, we're not saying money is a bad thing. Money is a fantastic tool.
It just
that
can't be your limiting factor.
Experiences. It just can't be your limiting factor.
Right. If people only built what they had the money for themselves, a lot wouldn't happen. But when you have a vision compelling enough, I mean, and even in the kind of win first type of mentality is you could even have customers fund it with crowdsourcing.
Yeah.
And so just take money off the table for now.
Yeah.
Don't let that be a limiting factor. Number 2, don't let time be the limiting factor. Where you're like, I don't have the time.
An excuse.
Right. Because it's always going to be delayed. And 3, don't let your ability as it currently stands be the limiting factor.
Yeah. Like I've seen some of your first stand-up comedy. It really wasn't that good. But now,
wow,
right? Well, I mean, there was that time that posted that clip went up, and
that was poorly edited though too.
Okay, blame it on the editors.
Yeah. The ones where I found online, I'm like, did you post these? You're like, why would I have posted this garbage?
Yeah, but again, it's in the process, and the fact that you loved the process and you identified it wasn't filling the comedy venue,
right?
But it was the process of writing itself, the process of like running things between us and having a laugh. That has in the last year and a half, I've seen the quality of your writing, and I've seen the quality of your performance grow at an exponential level. Because when you're open to the feedback, you don't let that knock you off your track, and you understand it's a process. Right. And you're doing something that you love. So when
the win is in the work.
Absolutely.
The win is in the process.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. And you watched it yesterday. I mean, the feedback was fierce on the one-man show. And it's probably the best I've ever done with that hardcore feedback because I'm like, I get this is part of the growth, but it's also coming from a place of stern love. It wasn't like, you know, but the process of the comedy was November 15th, 2020, deciding to write a special and enjoying every day, like getting up and being like, oh, I want to write more.
You were on fire back then.
And then walking and rehearsing every day, going to comedy clubs and testing out the material, doing Zooms, getting to spend all this time with my friends because they're showing up on Zoom meetings. And if I could do Zoom comedy, I could do other comedy. And then facing all my insecurities, like, can I really have 8 cameras on me? And I've only been on stage 33 minutes for a comedy, and now I'm going to do a whole special with 4 hours. And you know, it's like, it was challenging, but it was so much fun. It was so much fun because I would go, okay, these guys have heard these jokes 50 times. What can I say that they haven't heard that's going to make them laugh? And then that makes the or just writing a joke and testing it out on my wife and getting a chuckle and being like, oh, dude, that feels good that she actually laughed at one of my jokes, you know? Because if I can make her laugh, I can make anybody laugh.
She's a tough customer.
But that's the know your win. It's knowing that the win is in the process, the win is in the work, not just the outcome. When we're addicted to outcomes, we lose along the way. And when we get the outcome, it's a very temporary amount of joy, like buying a new vehicle. I like buying a new vehicle and showing it to people.
Great, and for then the first month.
Yeah, and then I'm like, cool, it's just a vehicle. Yeah, that's the difference, is like knowing our win comes from within. It's not from someone else telling us what to do, what to say, how to be, what works, what doesn't work, what's possible, what's not possible. It's where we actually start to trust our inner voice. And I believe that our win is something to remember because it's already there. But we just have crowded out with noise and effort and
responsibilities and real world things, right?
Real circumstance, death of a loved one, you know, physical illness,
family to provide for,
you know, all this kind of stuff that is, but the weight and levity of that starts to crowd out that enjoyment. And then people say it's selfish to take care of yourself.
Right.
It's selfish to do these things. No, that's the thing. Taking care of yourself gives you more. And I think the great lie that takes people out of their win is you got to change the world, or you have a responsibility to the world. Well, look, the world will always be in chaos. No matter how much you solve, it'll just come back with just as many problems, if not more. So if you don't take care of your own life, you've already lost. And when we skip going, oh, I'm not going to take care of myself because I got to take care of everybody else, we have less to give. We don't have the joy. And it creates bitterness, resentment, and anger. And then everybody loses.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, like when you take care of self, that allows you to show up better for family, which encourages them to take, like it becomes a ripple effect. Right. But there's this whole selfish notion that if you're taking care of yourself, you're not taking care of the world. And I think it all starts from within.
And society will not reward you for taking care of your family.
No.
Society won't acknowledge you for taking care of yourself. Society wants you to skip the steps to become the hamster on the wheel so that you do what they want, because then they can profit from that, or they could leverage that. And I know a few people that have made it at the highest level that were, it's crazy to hear them talk about how suicidal they were because they didn't feel, they lost all the joy in everything they did.
On paper, it's everything that you're told to strive for. But when you sit down and have a conversation with that person, they're pretty unhappy.
It's like even before the slap, that whole thing with Will Smith on David Letterman's My Next Guest. I'm like, dude, you got to watch this.
Powerful episode.
Where he had basically said, I won the game and I was losing at life.
Damn.
I was like, dude, that's the thing. Not knowing the win and letting other people define the win based upon their priorities, their profits, their intentions. And some of them are coming from a good intention.
Absolutely.
But how do they know if you don't know your win?
Exactly.
So, all right, there's a lot that we unpacked there. To summarize, it's what is it that lights you up? Just because you love something doesn't always mean it's going to be profitable. So when we have future episodes, we're going to talk about how can you do things that have nothing to do with money and yet hit this exponential area that starts to improve your money.
Can't wait
but
to
you
get
have
into
to,
that.
So that one's really exciting. And then knowing your win is really looking at what are you doing on a daily basis? Go through your calendar and go, what am I doing that brings me energy? What am I doing that drains my energy? And if someone were to know you by your calendar, is that the life that you want to live? And is there enough space in that for play? You know, I feel like after coming back from Italy in 2017, it was like a renaissance. I start playing my guitar again, very mediocrely, but I still enjoy it. You know, I get a whiskey somm because I'm a douchebag like that.
100%.
You know, I start learning to fly fish, still very rookie at it, but I can get fish into a net. So it's something. You know, I just start walking the river. I start doing more riding. I start taking time for myself. Before I'm working out because it'll make me more productive and keep me healthy. I'm working because it will make more money and get me more status. You know, so it's like, it's harder to be present in those moments. So knowing your win is going to give you more presence. It's going to allow you to enjoy the gift of each day. It's going to allow you to create a life that you don't want to retire from. It's going to allow you to enjoy things now, not just later, because we know later is just code word and polite for never.
Yeah.
Or no.
So to simplify that, because again, like the defining what your win is a very complex topic, and I can't wait until we get into some of the nitty gritty of that. But to simplify it for this episode, are you excited in the morning to participate in your day? It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, it's time to sit down and, like you said, look at the things that aren't serving you and start filling those with things that are going to bring you joy.
How late did we stay up last night? I mean, for us as old as we are.
Considering I'm a 9:30, if I'm in bed by 9:30, I'm a happy guy.
Because you were actually giving me East Coast time. You're giving me Toronto time.
That was 2:30 East Coast time.
Yeah. So
I'm a hooligan again.
So that I was still up at 6:30 to send in the book, to adjust a few quotes, you know.
But that's joy.
And
we're excited to get up and do that.
Yeah, and excited to do it. Like, couldn't wait to get out here and send that off. And I'm excited that we're doing this podcast and YouTube video, whatever you might want to call it, and talk about this concept that's needed. Know your win.
Absolutely.
Hope you enjoyed What's Your Win. For me, it's discovery on a daily basis, getting more clear about what to remove from my life, what to embrace, and define the rules of the game from my perspective. I want you to do that in your own life. So dive into yet another episode so you can get clear about your win, remove the obstacles and distractions, and have a better life and win before you begin.